When you're ready to print, there are several things that you want to have collected before you lay your paper down onto your wet inked plate. First, you need your piece of printmaking paper. You need a piece of tissue paper or wax paper. This is parchment paper or tracing paper, something that'll allow you to press down and with your spoon or your barons in a way that won't shift your paper around. You'll need your registration sheet and then a spoon. I have this metal spoon here. A wooden spoon also works wonderfully. And then I also have these barons. They're rather inexpensive and work great for printing processes like the ones that we'll be working on this semester. And then your inked plate. Once you have all of those materials gathered, now you can take your plate, set it within the registration mark so you know that that plate is resting exactly where you want it on your printing paper. Take your clean piece of printing paper and instead of going over the surface of your plate and kind of gauging where that is, you want to take your paper, and we'll turn it this way just so that you can see it better. Line it up along one edge, preferably as far away from your plate as you can get so you have some more flexibility. Line it up with a corner and then the other corner and along the flat side. So you can see that I know that this paper is now square with my registration paper without having touched the inked plate yet. I'm holding it down with my one hand and created that hinge. And now I can drop this paper knowing that it is exactly square to my registration and that my plate is sitting exactly where I want it on that registration paper. I'm going to lay my piece of tracing or tissue paper over this surface again to allow for any shifting to happen of the tissue paper and not my printing paper. I'm going to take a baron to start. This is nice because it gives a larger surface area to the pressure you're applying. And I'm going to apply a firm pressure down over the whole surface of my plate. I'm not worried about applying too much strength here because you're not going to force your way through the paper. You can't create enough force for that to happen. But you want to make sure that all of that ink gets the opportunity to touch the paper and transfer. For the use of the spoon, you want to use the smooth rounded side. And again, applying that same pressure across the surface of your plate. When you're using a spoon, because that point of pressure is much smaller than with the baron, you want to make sure that you work in several different directions so that you're kind of cross-hatching, so to speak, your pressure across your plate. If you feel confident that you've applied enough pressure and across the whole of your plate, you can take your tissue paper or tracing paper aside and you can take a peek at your print just to make sure it's translated the way that you want. And in doing so and making sure that you still have the opportunity to reapply pressure should it not be where you want to hold down your plate with one hand on your paper and just lift up a corner so the paper itself isn't shifting and you just get the opportunity to take a peek at what you were working on. Here, I can see that I still need a little bit of pressure. So I'm just going to apply with the spoon again. So you can see that while just then the tissue paper started to crinkle, but the paper underneath it didn't move. And that's the benefit of this layer in between your printing paper and the pressure you're applying with the spoon or the baron, because if that catch had happened when I didn't have this paper that I'm printing on could have crinkled or shifted, and that would have caused a disruption in my print, potentially making it illegible. Give one more swipe. And now comes the moment of truth in terms of revealing the print. I'm going to rotate it so that it is the appropriate direction for what I laid out on my registration. I'm going to lift from one corner, making sure that my plate removes. I'm going to place my plate off to the side, and then here we have then the final print. You can see where my carve marks are is the lightness on the print, and I have some that are very fine detailed where other areas are larger, and that comes from the differentiation in the carving of the plate.